The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. Something old and something new. In the 5 years that the Lionheart Retro Series has toured the world with the legendary Lotus 79, it has never touched down in the southwest of England. With no form book to fall back on, and in a season where 5 races have seen 5 different winners, today we expect the unexpected in the rolling hills of Kent. Welcome to Brands Hatch, and welcome to the GRAAFix eSports Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing. Hello everyone and welcome back to racespottv and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined in the racespottv commentary booth by the one, the only DJ Clark, and let's dive straight into our next level racing pre-race show, because DJ, last time out we were racing for the Thunder Down Under at Phillip Island. Back-to-back road course races, it's always exciting. We love that we take these Lotus 79s to the ovals where they were very much not designed to go racing. This is their home, this is their battleground. We're expecting a fun race as we take a look at your next level racing schedule.
Indeed, as you said, back-to-back road courses here for this chunk of the season. We'll be headed to Nashville, and then one of the crown jewels in the form of Indianapolis on June 30th to close out a little bit of the summer months. Always some good stuff to see there, and we'll have a little bit of a break before we get to the Hungaroring, another new circuit on the schedule for this Lionheart Retro Series. It's going to be a bit of a challenge out here today, though, Arjuna. You and I were talking before we came on air on just how tricky this circuit is, specifically in order to get past around here. It's a very, very difficult overtaking opportunity around here.
It is. I love that this first half of the season sees plenty of surprises. The back half is equally surprising. We'll go to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the fourth to final race of the calendar as we get closer now, though, towards the 1/3 marker of your 2022 season. Let's run you down through the next level racing driver standings, where Mike Razmas is at the front once more, but can he hold on with a long old way to go in front of the likes of Michael O'Brien, David Siwa. O'Brien coming off again another podium position for the New Zealand native. What does he need to do to win? He's always strong on the road courses. Will today be the day that he breaks the cherry that is his Lionheart Retro Series win? David Siwa, always impressive on the road courses, to become a very good driver on the ovals as well. Let's see if that Raven Lavoie Motorsports machine can convert to victory lane. Matt Taylor, Chris Fowler, Alex Guyon, and David Rodriguez sit through the top 7. Ricky Harding tied on points with both Guyon and Rodriguez. Look how tight it is throughout the rest of the field. And when you see many of the MadWorks Motorsports cars inside of the top 10 in the championship, well, when we look at these HyperX team standings, it's no surprise that MadWorks is at the front. GRAAFix LC, after finishing 1, 2, and 3 in the opening race of the calendar, still looking up there in the point. Raven Lavoie as well. It's becoming a 3-horse breakaway. The RSI by buttkicker team, if they have some consistency, TJ, they are very much not out of the equation.
Yeah, exactly. They've just had some unfortunate breaks over the course of the year, and that's really put them on the back foot, but that team looking very, very strong. Also looking back there is they've got to keep their eyes in the rearview mirror between Backfire Motorsports and Raven Motorsports Silver to really keep everything going.
Let's run you down through your buttkicker rookie standings, where after an impressive back half of 2021, David Rodriguez enters his first full campaign as a competitor here in the Retro Series and leads by just under 50 points from Jim Herrick in the 4D sim racing machine. Of course, Jim Herrick, very impressive when it came to the Pocono Raceway when he took his inaugural Lionheart Retro Series win. The Backfire Motorsports trio sits third through 5th in these point standings. Let's run you down then through the Retro Series. Series details brought to you by Gomez Sim Industry. It's the 6th season of the Lionheart Retro Series. In the 9th year of the Lionheart Racing Series, we're campaigning this Lotus 79 that has very much become a fan favorite here on iRacing. DJ commentates on them in official competition on a Sunday morning here in the US. It's a fan favorite around the world. Usually, of course, we do see it on the road courses, but we show here in this Retro Series that it's a very capable machine on the ovals as well. Custom fix setup for every single driver. It means the only in-car adjustments, the only adjustments indeed you have are your 2 hands, your 2 feet. How you adapt to the setup is going to be vital. Cash in prizes just over $7,000, and your season champion will win a Next Level Racing GT Track cockpit, as well as a Moser Racing DD Wheelbase, and Formula Rim. One of the Triple Crowns is done, 2 still to go. They're all chasing your defending champion Aaron Morgan, who was on a part-time schedule here in 2022. We were hoping to see him here today, but in fact we will not. He will be taking a leave of absence. Instead, your 2020 Retro Series champion Ryan Otis returns to the field. He's been watching on keenly. Very excited to see what's in store for him today. Defending team champions, the Avatar Order Racing, split ways. Morgan on a part-time schedule, Taylor and Michael O'Brien now part of the Madworks Motorsports camp, who do lead in the team championship. And with that said, it's the first race, so there's no Moser Racing event details to talk to you about. Instead, you get to see our wonderful faces. And DJ, this is going to be fun. We throw the form book out, 5 races, 5 different winners. I think we're on course for a 6th different winner in 2022. I think it's quite hard to count out either Ryan Otis or Michael O'Brien. I'm really thinking those two will show up strong here today.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Arjuna. Definitely looking like those two are going to be the ones to beat out here today. And this is an old school style circuit. It's a little bit like Phillip Island in that regard, but we're not dealing with as many necessarily hairpins. It's a lot of flow. It's a lot of rhythm. So keep an eye out for drivers that have been able to log some good practice time in and that qualify up towards the top of the field. As I said earlier, very difficult to overtake around here, so you're probably only going to be looking at a victor out of your maybe top 5 or so.
Yeah, passing is going to be an opportunistic game. You see someone in front of you make that mistake, you pounce. It's a 54-lap affair where the fuel window is expected to be between 25 and 26 laps. If you're feeling brave, you might decide to try and do some fuel saving here, and I do think we might see a couple of cars elect to go for that. It's going to be a tall order, yes, but these are the type of races where if you're in a draft pack, you're not looking to make the move happen, you can roll the car into the corners, make sure you save that little bit of fuel, and it's a shortish track with some areas, especially through the middle sector, right, where you're diving down the hill through Dingledary in towards Sheen Curve, where you can save a bit of fuel. I wonder if strategy will play an effect here today. It's not just about fuel, it's about tires as well, of course.
Indeed it is, and don't forget that last year's race at Mosport, very similar to what we saw here. There were drivers that were able to make that one-stop strategy work as they went their way around, and I think that's exactly what you could see playing out here today. As drivers starting to put those qualifying times down on the board, though, and that's going to give us our first indication of who's going to be where.
Yeah, again, it's a 10-minute qualifying session, a little bit longer than what you're used to if you've only caught the oval races so far in 2022. It's always exciting when you get 10 minutes on the clock, 4 flying laps, and with these bias ply tires, as the fuel burns off, you just go quicker and quicker. It's very much about getting the laps on the board, burning the fuel, and making sure when the qualifying session draws to a close, you put yourself in the right position. On provisional pole, with just over 3.5 minutes done in this session, is the 2020 champion, Ryan Otis, who returns and is currently 2/10 clear of the rest of the field. David Siwa second, Razmas in third, Valiokas in fourth. And let's talk about him as well. I maybe discounted him when I was talking about Ryan Otis and Michael O'Brien's chances. Valiokas put it on pole at Watkins Glen, and if not for his own mistakes in pit lane, incurring a speeding penalty, he would have been fighting at the sharp end of things, looking for his first victory. I think he's got a score to settle as we go road racing for the second consecutive race.
I have to agree with you there. He looked a little bit off form at Phillip Island, but as we've said, Phillip Island, a little bit of a unique circuit, one of those that you either love it or you hate it. Brands Hatch has some similarities as well to Watkins Glen, a lot of fast-flowing corners around here, and I think with Valiokas now putting in a time that is provisionally P2 and only 1/10 of a second off of Siwa and Otis right now, those times continuing to fall down a little bit. You've got to watch out for that RSR driver.
Here they come. The top 3 split by 9/100ths of a second, basically a 10th as it stands right now. Ryan Otis is being bumped down to 4th, but he's coming through onto the back straightaway right now to set another lap time here. Again, 4 laps in the Indy cars. If you watch road course racing there on Wednesdays in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, you see drivers set a lap time on lap 1. They elect then to return to pit lane to save the tires. Lap 2 and 3 then, by virtue of that, are thrown in the bin. It's all about lap 4. So banker lap on lap 1, fast flying lap on lap 4. Very, very different though here in the Lionheart Retro Series. Ryan Otis running as an independent driver, of course, works his way into the final corner here at Brands Hatch, just under 4 kilometers in length, 2.5 miles, as he rolls himself Up towards the start-finish line. A 1:14.9 is the benchmark. It's a 1:14.6. He's back to the front by almost 4 full tenths of a second.
And that is a big surprise, Arjuna. We were talking about just how close those gaps looked across the field, and they were mimicked in qualifying. We'll have to see here if Michael O'Brien and some of these other drivers will be able to come in closer than that. Oh, my goodness, O'Brien barely pips him.
And this is remarkable. Sirois improves to a 14.816, but that's going to be qualifying done for him. Lionel Kalisto is rolling down the hill in his Raven Motorsports number 97. Chris Fowler's jumped up to 8th. The top 6 are split by 6/10 of a second. Good to see Chris Reagan up there in the thick of things as well as we tumble down. 4 minutes left. O'Brien's done with qualifying. His 4 laps are burned on through. It's all the pressure now on the likes of Matt Taylor and Ryan Otis. There's Taylor working himself through Surtees onto the back straightaway. But halfway through the lap, what's it going to look like for him? Razmas is also tracking quite impressively as he works his way in through Hawthorns, provisionally up about half a second on his qualifying time. Here, though, is that 95 car in the white and red, befitting a Formula One machine. A 14.549 is the benchmark for Ryan Otis to beat as he comes to the line, minimizes the distance. It's a 14.742, no improvement. O'Brien holds on.
And it looks like Marius Valiokis is going to be able to bump his way up into P5. No improvement there from Sirois. He's going to pull off down pit lane. Looks like Mike Rasmus is going to be the one that may be able to improve here. Is he going to be able to cross over the line with a good time of 14.5? That's going to put him in P2.
My word, 200 splits the front two. Taylor improves up to 4th on the board. 3 cars split by half a tenth of a second. It does not get much closer than this. We are in for a treat at the front of the field. We'll watch as Luke Daniels comes across the line in his 4D sim racing machine. Of course, 4D sim racing, as Justin Prince likes to say, they're playing plenty of 4D chess as Daniels improves on time, but no improvement in terms of lap time. Let's go ahead and walk you then through the track itself. Again, remember, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined by the one and only DJ Clark. Brantach has got plenty of elevation change, DJ, as we get a look at this wonderful facility. It's an old school track, opened in 1950, has really not seen many configuration changes since then, and it's a place that very much has become a driver's favorite.
Yeah, a driver's favorite is definitely the way to describe this. The heaviest braking zone you're really going to experience is coming up the hill into Druids and potentially setting that up with a run through Paddock Hill Bend. That's going to be your best overtaking opportunity. From there, running down the hill into Graham Hill Bend, down through Surtees. It's all about damage limitation going through there. And then into the back half of the track, it's just about keeping that car on the black stuff, not running too wide, as it is very, very easy to do. You want to try to carry as maximum momentum as possible through the corners, and sometimes that can mean you get those left side tires off into the dirty stuff.
Now, 3 drivers have end-of-line penalties for incidents in the last couple of races. They include the likes of Ricky Harding, Chris Staples, and David Rodriguez. But from what we see right now, we are looking at 8 cars that have not put down a lap time. They also then include amongst them the likes of Brett Accord, Scott Holmes, Brian Hotham, Chris Staples, I mentioned him with the end of line, Adam Young, and Danny Roberts. So those are the cars that will be starting at the tail end of the field as we click down. 60 seconds to go in this race. The top 12 split by just under a second. At a track like this, with a race and like what we were expecting, the draft is going to be crucial. I think if you're someone like David Sirois, you're not feeling too bad about being a quarter of a second off the pace. It's going to be enough to keep you in the drafting range. Might be enough, like I mentioned, to do some fuel saving, try and make this a one-stop race.
And that's certainly what it's going to be, and that position and where you are in qualifying is certainly going to dictate a little bit of that strategy. I think for O'Brien, maybe for Rasmus up front, they may be pushing this all out and trying to make this into a 2-stop, but we may see guys like Sirois, maybe Valiokis, Reagan, Fowler, some of those drivers further back in the field, even Richie Hearn may be able to back off a little bit.
Where is Richie? He's back in 9th. Of course, always impressive at Phillip Island. Let's see what he can do rolling off inside of the top 10. Qualifying draws to a close. We're ready to go racing for the first time in the Lionheart Retro Series here in the rolling hills of Kent. We're ready for the GRAAFix eSports Grand Prix. Let's run you down through today's starting grid. And on the pole position sits Michael O'Brien. It is his 7th career pole position, still searching for that first career victory. Alongside him is your championship leader, Mike Rasmus, for the GRAAFix LC Motorsports car in the 68 200ths behind. The 2020 champion returns to an old stomping ground. He'll line up inside of Matt Taylor on his outside, with David Sirwa and Marius Valiokos completing the top 6. Back in 7th is Chris Reagan, who will be sharing row 4 with Chris Fowler. Rolling off on the edge of the top 10, Richie Hearn and Lionel Callisto find themselves alongside. Adam Frazier and Alex Guyon share row 6, while starting in 13th is the black, white, and pink of Gabe Wood, who's been impressive in the last couple of races. What can he do? Will he make it lucky? Number 13, Jim Herrick, race winner at Pocono, 14th for him. Luke Daniels and the Candyman, Dustin Wardlow, share row number 8. Cristobal Valenzuela and Tyler Graf, row number 9, while rounding out the top 20, it's Chris Lanini and Rodrigo Munoz. Robert Mikes and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, 21st and 22nd, while Paul Jenkins and Hugo Gallas line up behind them. Back in 25th is the series organizer George Anzaldo. He's the final car with a lap time on the board. David Rodriguez will roll to the end of the line to get this race underway. He'll be towards the back, along with the likes of Danny Roberts, Scott Holmes, Chris Staples, Brian Hotham, who complete the top 30, Ricky Harden, Brett Accord, and Adam Young, the 33 cars lining up for you here today. As always, here in the Lionheart Racing Series, we have featured onboards to run you down through. So with a full pace lap, let's not dawdle, let's run you down through today's featured onboard cameras. Carrying the GRAAFix eSports onboard camera is Chris Lanini. GRAAFix eSports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graafixesports.com.
Carrying the SimRace 247 onboard camera is Luis Nunez. Visit simrace247.com, where sim racing is for everyone.
And with the HyperX onboard camera rolls Matt Taylor. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Should note as well that with a full pace lap, it's going to be even more difficult to save the fuel than what I was maybe anticipating, but this is where getting on the clutch, the experience with the car will come in play as well. It's prediction time, DJ, and I've already, I think, set my stall out. I think O'Brien, I think Otis are the two to watch. If I'm putting my money now, if I'm a betting man, I'm saying it's Michael O'Brien who finally breaks that duck. What about you? With a 67-odd minute race on the cards, which way do you think this race is going to swing?
Well, I think it's hard to bet against the multiple-time champion here, Ryan Otis. The number 95 is going to be very, very good. I'm also going to keep my eye on the two drivers starting back in row 3, David Sirwa and Marius Valiokos. Those two have had incredible speed this entire season. I think we could see them maybe do a little bit of an alternate strategy, try to save a little bit of fuel. Those are the two that I have my eye on.
Great shot of the cars as they build up some temperature in their tires coming down in towards Hawthorns. It's a tricky right-hand kink, a slight dab on the brake and down a gear or two. Well, it'll be 0 or 0 for Matt Taylor. I'll ask you another question. I'll ask you for another prediction. Do you think anyone goes bold? Does anyone try the one-stop strategy here?
I think if you're down in the field, you gotta go for it. People looking around the area of, let's say, Dustin Wardlow, Tyler Graf, Chris Lanini, a very, very good driver starting all the way down in 19th. I think you roll the dice a little bit there and try to go for that one stop if you can. If you're that far down in the field, why not? You've got nothing to lose, and it's going to be hard to work your way up forward without going on an alternate strategy.
Are you sad, DJ, that as a competitor of this series last year, you never got to race here at Brands Hatch?
I am and I'm not. I'm sad because I do love driving this circuit, but I know I would have binned it at some point, so it's probably a good thing I never got a chance to.
Round 6 of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series is ready to get underway. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the GRAAFix eSports Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing. It's an early jump for Michael O'Brien. We're racing in the rolling hills of Kent. It's a great jump for the top 3 as they single file themselves out. Chris Reagan looks to the inside as they plunge down the hill in through Paddock Bend, up the hill in towards Druids. Nice and tidy throughout the entire field. No signs of the chaos that we had at Phillip Island. Very, very clean, very, very tidy.
Clean and tidy for sure, but a lot of side-by-side action there in the back, specifically looking around Reagan, Sirwa, Richie Hearn already up 2, Chris Reagan up 2 as well. So some drivers taking advantage at the start of this race.
Looks like a couple of cars have come across some issues. That's Scott Holmes, Adam Young, the two that have found themselves wide, coming down through Graham Hill Bend. Single file now within the top 10. David Sirwa a bit swarmed on the start, as was Valiokas. Their line, I don't think, rolled off as they were expected. They've lost positions, as has Chris Fowler, taking advantage. Reagan, Richie Hearn inside of the top 10. Not much movement, though. Already trying to break away at the front of the field at 0.6 of a second. That Spritz O'Brien from Razmas. He's got some work to do, is O'Brien, if he wants to run away, but he's trying hard, he's trying early.
And I think that's a good strategy there for Michael O'Brien. Try to build that gap as much as possible. Break a little bit of that draft away from Mike Rasmus if he can here at this point. But the bigger gap that's starting to develop is back with Ryan Otis. That's about 0.6 of a second there. We'll have to see if maybe Otis is doing a little bit of fuel saving or if he just got a little bit of discombobulated on that first lap.
There's a look inside by Richie Hearn as they come up the hill in towards Druids on the RSR by buttkicker machine of Valiokas. That 23 black and green. Down the hill they come once more. The scene of the issue for Scott Holmes and Adam Young a lap ago, but no send forthcoming from Richie Hearn. We always talk about this when it comes to the former American open wheel competitor in Full Metal Motorsports. Always has got a somewhat dodgy internet connection. He's always aware of that, not trying to force the issue too much. Reagan, though, already dropping now 1 full second back from Matt Taylor. The top 3 split by 0.7 of a second. A further second back sits Matt Taylor. The top 3 really trying to put the afterburners on and run away.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying here at this point, Arjuna, that those top 3 definitely looking at a 2-stop strategy, as that's Gabe Wood falling down through the field. I don't know if that was an off track or if he just got himself a little bit squirrely, but one way or the other, he is hemorrhaging positions.
It's all the way down in 17th spot. I did say, was it going to be lucky number 13, unlucky number 13? At least for now, it does seem as though he's managed to gather it up, holds on to 17th, defends from Cristobal Valenzuela. Get back into line and tidy things up. At the front of the field, we focus once more on Ryan Otis on the charge and on the prowl. Let's take a look then at what happened at the start of this race between Scott Holmes, between Adam Young, as we take a look at our racespottv replay machine. Oh, and it started with one of the RSR cars. Now, was that David Rodriguez?
I think it was Arjuna, just a little bit of argy-bargy there into the side, and that sent everybody else sort of pinballing around. We're going to ride on board with Rodriguez here, goes down into the corner, and unfortunately that looked like a little bit of netcode contact that wasn't exactly able to be gathered up back up under him.
Well, the car that started with an end-of-line penalty, it's the danger of being put back in the thick of things. You get more contact. It's as simple as that. I was trying to be clever. There's not much more you could say.
There really isn't, and when you're put back in that EOL position, it feels like you've got a chip on your shoulder, like you're fighting to prove that you're a little bit better than that penalty deserves, as we watch what happened to Gabe Wood. And I think that's a little bit of what happened there with Rodriguez. He's just got a little bit of over-scrappiness.
And that is just understeer city for Gabe Wood, and I gotta say, full credit to him. He could have been a much more dangerous on the rejoin. Connery Maddock will enjoy that, and then the Candyman makes him a little bit nervous as they work their way through Sheen. Gabe Wood loses an additional position, but then fends off the advances from that 33 car. Breakaway for the top 4. It's now 2 seconds back to Chris Reagan. Taylor's been able to hold the very last vestiges of the draft, but it's very much in front of him that those cars are looking to push forward. Got a feel for Sirwa. He's bottled up now behind that number 19.
He read my mind. I was going to say Chris Reagan looking a little bit like the cork in the bottle here as Sirwa, Valiokas, and Hearn all look particularly quick there behind him, and they are really going to want to try to push as hard as they can to get themselves ahead. We ride on board with Sirwa, and he can see that gap opening up in front of him. He knows he needs to get by.
It's always a frustrating thing as well for a driver when you think you've got the speed, but when you're at a track like this where it's just so difficult to work your way forward. Nice and tidy though for the 99 as they cut themselves through the penultimate corner of the track. Camber's in at the start of the corner, then Camber's off as you get through to the exit of the corner. That gap though is working upwards corner by corner. Taylor still technically within draft range, but has very much lost the majority of the benefit that he's going to enjoy. Of course, remember, 54 lap of fair fuel window, about 26 laps. If anyone's going to be brave, if anyone's going to be bold, maybe it does favor the likes of David Sirwa to give it a go.
You are fully right there, Arjuna. Sirwa able to close down a little bit more of the gap at about 0.4 of a second, and the same gap back to Marius Valiokis as well as they come down through Graham Hill Bend and work their way towards Surtees right now. Sirwa looking particularly good through the twisty bits on this track. As they get down into the slower sections, that looks like what his driving style is favoring. It's the jump off the line on some of the longer straights that it just looks like Sirwa doesn't have it, as that's Adam Young down pit lane.
That is Adam Young, who's rolling himself, maybe with a bit of damage after his lap 1, turn 4 incident down the hill into Graham Hill Bend. He's got a favorable box position by virtue of the number of cars that we've got in our field, but unfortunately for him, if he's going to go back out on track, you'd expect he will make it a one-stop race from here to the end. Working lap 5, we're coming to the close of lap number 5. It is very much a 4-car train. 2 seconds splits the top 4. O'Brien, Rasmus, Otis, and Taylor. 2 of those cars, of course, representing the MadWorks Motorsports bunch. Here's the battle, though, for 18th on back. Looking side by side is Chris Lanini and Cristobal Valenzuela. The 92 slides down the inside, works his way up to 18th spot.
And that's a good move by Lanini. Only up 1 on the day, and it doesn't look like it's over as Valenzuela's going to try to send one down the inside of Paddock Hill Bend, and that is the way to hold on to a position. Lanini just forced out wide, left with nothing to do.
Oh, a contact! Lanini had a send, and it's ended in tears for the 92. I think Valenzuela's just about held on to his machine. David Rodriguez has come a cropper as well. Big drama down the field, and poor David Rodriguez. I talked about it earlier. When you get the end-of-line penalty, you're thrown straight into the hornet's nest.
Yeah, your blood is up, as well as I mentioned earlier, and I think Rodriguez just falling afoul of not 1, not 2, but almost 3 incidents there at this point.
Oh, no.
And so he's going to have to go around, and there's George Anzaldo with a problem.
Yep, a couple of cars then having issues as the 96 of Chris Staples looks to work his way forward after his own end-of-line penalty to start this race off. He gets on past Hugo Gallas in the number 84 machine for the Backfire Motorsports team. Let's grab a look at what happened, and let's start on the run down in towards Paddock Hill Bend. It's a corner that falls away from you. The over-under is so easy to set up, and that's what Lanini thought about, but he pushes too wide on the exit of the corner. He tries to go to the inside. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. To some extent, the Backfire Motorsports car of Valenzuela is always coming across the track, and unfortunately it ends in tears for them.
Yeah, there was a gap there. Lanini saw it and went for it, but I've got to agree with you there, Arjuna, that that gap was always going to close. And then, just a little bit of secondary contact there behind for Rodriguez, try to force the issue a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm going to put all of the blame there on Hugo Gallas, I think that was, and the other of the Backfire Motorsports car just turned in on the RSR by buttkicker machine. Not much that the number 10 could really do. David Rodriguez now runs last of those still in the race. Does look as though Adam Young will be retiring. He's been in pit lane for a while already. Gap between 4th and 5th up to 2.9 seconds as Chris Reagan continues to feel the pressure from behind. Chris Staples now gets in front of Bobby Mikes. Another position gained on the 96's charge up through the field. Jim Herrick as well as, who is that, Tyler Graaf, having some issues that they work their way up through Sheen. We expected this to be a crazy race. We are not being disappointed.
No, we are not. Plenty of drivers here really struggling, and as I said, that back half of the track where everything is just so fast and flowing, there's not a lot of heavy braking zones to really get you caught down into, and so you're going to see a lot of these incidents, Arjuna, a lot of these single car offs that have to be caught around, that is, I believe, Gabe Wood down pit lane.
Now, is this a strategy call to get out of the hornet's nest and try and make something work on strategies? A 5-second pit stop, I don't hate that call. I think that's a wise move to try and find some track position. Let's have a look at what happened. Tyler Graaf to the inside. Jim Herrick, I think, just pushed wide. Not sure what exactly happened to Tyler Graaf, to be honest, and I wonder if there was some contact with Gabe Wood. Maybe that's why he's come down to pit lane.
Well, let's go back and check that out again. We're going to ride on board with Gabe Wood here. I think it's one of 2 things. Yeah, it looked like there may have been just the slightest bit of contact, but I think in terms of Graaf going off in the first place, that looked like a little bit of just incident fixation as you saw Herrick going off in front of him, and he had nowhere to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that was just too focused, too tight a line, and I think Gabe Wood got away with that. I didn't hear any contact, I didn't see any contact, I didn't see any damage. I think the 2 of them got away with that one. Still a long old way to go in this race, not even at the 10-lap marker of this 54-lap affair. Riding on board with Jim Herrick as we work our way, with Tyler Graaff as he chases down Jim Herrick as we work our way into Paddock Hill Bend. You get a real sense of the undulation here as Herrick goes a bit wide. Does it open the door for the 98 to have a look? Here he comes, Tyler Graaff to the inside, and whoa, he almost understeered and locked up into the path of the 40 sim racing car. Jim Herrick holds off for now, but look at the pressure that Graaff's putting on him.
And I've got to give credit to Tyler Graaff there. That was a good way to be able to get the car. That's another car off, down, going into Clark Curve.
I think that's Gabe Wood again. Question will be, was it by himself? You have to assume it was, given where he was on the track. Let's have a look, and yeah, on the grass, clips it. Going to be lucky to have gotten away without too much contact there. Richie Hearn has lost a spot to Chris Fowler, I do believe. There is the number 70 machine, and he's now in the clutches of Adam Frazier. So all the good work that Richie Hearn did at the start, well, he's got to do it all over again.
Yeah, he's right back to where he started in 9th place, so he's going to have to try to go back up. And I've got to say here, now that Fowler's gotten by him, that gap is about 1.6, 1.7 seconds. I think Fowler was being held up a little bit from behind. Let's watch the replay. Did Richie have a little bit of a moment? That was more than a little bit. Yeah,
that's about as much as you want. Reagan has got a pass by David Seward towards the front of this pack. We'll get one more look from the off-board shot as Rich. You say he was holding up Fowler, but you can see how close that Richie was running to those in front. Double understeer, double draft in effect, and double dirty air being fed to Richie Hearn's machine. I don't know necessarily how slow he was, but crucially, Seward gets on past. The gap up front, though, 4 seconds to the next car up the road.
Well, and this was the definite cork in the bottle that we were talking about a little bit there with Chris Reagan to see if that was holding up the drivers behind him. And I've got to say right now, it does look like Sirwa is able to pull away about 0.5 of a second over about 3/4 of a lap. So Sirwa's starting to press an advantage. He is going to want to try to close in as much as possible on that 4-second gap up to Matt Taylor.
Matt Taylor has the fastest lap of the race, punched in this most recent trip across the line. It's a 14.850, the benchmark. This time by it's a 15.009, so not much drop-off just yet. And as I say that, Michael O'Brien goes faster with a 14.753. Oh, who was that? By themselves. Oh, it's Valiocas. Oh, my word. He's going to be heartbroken. He's out now at the top 10.
Oh my goodness, and I'm not even sure what happened there, Arjuna. It just looked like he may have clipped the grass coming down into the corner. Or that's got to be the only explanation. Let's watch the replay.
Yeah, and well, you're always pushing out wide, and yep, there you go. Left side tires, onto the grass, into the kitty litter he goes. So get a look on board with him as well. It's such an easy mistake to make as you're pushing hard, you're trying to follow closely, and by the time you made the mistake, it's too late to save it. It's as simple as that.
Yes, it is, and he's going to be able to get back and re-going in 12th position, running in a little bit of an island unto himself. He's got gaps around him, so that'll be good for him to be able to just kind of settle his brain back down, try to get everything back up underneath him.
7/10 the gap at the front. O'Brien is trying to pull away from the 68 machine, but at least for now, it's not really working. He's going to take an almighty effort to break that toe. You have to wonder when that opportunity is going to present itself. Now, in terms of race wins, Mike Razmas favors both the road courses as well as the ovals. Of course, Razmas coming off the win at Phillip Island a couple of weeks ago. Season 5 saw him win at Sonoma and Silverstone, and the final race at the Auto Club Speedway. Season 4, his first ever Retro Series win came on the short track at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. So an equal opportunist is that number 68 machine as Guyon gets in front of Adam Frazier, as Frazier made a mistake now as well. They're all falling one by one.
Yes, they are, and Frazier made that mistake going down into Graham Hill Bend. I think he may have caught a little bit of grass as well, and so that'll see him fall down to 12th place position as Valiocas was able to get by him. Well, let's watch that replay. Just comes in. Oh, no, he carried too much speed through the corner. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's the first time we've seen that, but it's so easy to do. Gravity working against you. You're pushing hard. It's slightly off camber. You can see he's working at that wheel, soaring at it to the right side, but unfortunately, not much that he could really do. George Anzaldo has had another trip off as Gabe Wood comes down. In fact, is towed back to pit lane, so that's day done then for the 04. It is unlucky number 13, it turns out.
It certainly does look that way, and you can see the damage on that car as Sirois, released of Chris Reagan, has been able to set the fastest lap of the race, so a great run there for David.
Yeah, I mean, there's the cork in the bottle that we're talking about, right? There's that pace that we expected to see. Let's grab a look at what happened to George Ansaldo. It's a replay fest right now. He's just locks the inside front, down the hill he goes, and you saw Gabe Wood, well, synchronized issues there.
Yeah, spinning in sympathy, as I have heard before, and Gabe, unfortunately, looks like he caught that inside wall as he came around right there, and that's going to be just enough damage. If you get damage to the rear end of that car, Arjuna, it really is day done.
Looks like Chris Lanini's had an issue as well. Like I said, one by one, they're dropping like flies, and now it's Brian Hotham that's having an issue, and oh, that's a big issue. That is a car done. He's going to require the tow back to pit lane. We mentioned this at the start. It's a technical, tricky racetrack with no room for mistakes, very similar to what we saw with Phillip Island just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, it is, and I think the difference here between this and Phillip Island is really the fact that most of these corners are high speed as opposed to some of the problems. Oh, catching the grass there. That's what caused that latest turnaround. But the high-speed nature of a lot of these corners, we're seeing a lot more of the grass touching really coming back to bite drivers as they try to push to the limits and carry as much speed as they can through these corners.
On board with your HyperX onboard camera, Matt Taylor has caught the back. It's now 1.4, that splits the top four. Sirois trying to close, but it's a 10th here, it's a 10th there. He needs a little bit more, still 3.9 back as they work themselves in this leading group down into one of the most fun and high commitment complexes that we're going to have in the entire 2022 campaign. Down through Westfield, in through Dingledell, and up the hill in towards Sheen. You see the grass on either side. There is no room for mistake.
No, absolutely none at all, as this top quartet continues to run pretty close to one another. Rasmus, Otis, and Taylor particularly running very, very close. A little bit of breathing room there for Michael O'Brien, but not enough that he would like and that he can really back off here, I think.
14 laps done. Plenty of racing still to go. Sirois now pulled away almost 2 seconds from Chris Reagan, and another fastest lap incoming from the Canadian, a 14.507. The frustrating part for him though, DJ, it's only about a 10th faster than what Michael O'Brien did last time by.
Yeah, and that's going to be the thing, is that there is such pace from these drivers up ahead that Sirois is really having to hustle. You can see him there in the back of your screen as he just comes in. He is having to really put that car into overdrive to be able to get it up. Now, the one hope he is going to have is that we will start coming on a little bit of lap traffic here sooner rather than later, and when that happens, he's going to hope that the leaders get held up a little bit and he'll be able to close in.
Yeah, that's a good point. Look at the track map where you can see the leaders at the very left edge of the track map coming up towards that number 6 machine of George Ansaldo. Don't expect George to be too much of an issue. Then there's Chris Lanini, in front of him Scott Holmes. I do think that given the delta between the fastest and the slowest drivers, we are expecting lap traffic to play a big factor. It also will make a difference when we think about pit stop windows here, DJ, and that's something that we'll talk about in a couple of moments' time. Let's talk about the track conditions, because it's getting dark. It's a cloudy day here just southwest of London. 76 in the air, 101 down on the track itself. That's going to fluctuate quite significantly through the course of this race.
Yes, it is, especially with that 7-mile-an-hour wind that we're seeing gusting around a little bit. 88% humidity, that's going to be good for these cars. That means that there's going to be more air to be physically pushing down on the cars as they drive their way around. The other thing that that's going to do is there's more air to push out of the way for the leading car in a train, and that means that the draft is going to be just a little bit more effective.
Remember, it's a fixed setup. There's no different wing angles and whatnot to be thinking about right now. It's as simple as pie. They've got what they've got. I commentated on a race, I want to say last weekend, where we were having to try and figure out what the wing angles. In fact, no, it was this past Monday, the iRacing IndyCar Open Series at the Indianapolis Grand Prix layout. The version we have in iRacing, though, is atrocious. I'll leave it at that. But, that was a big old wiggle from Rasmus. That might be that opportunity for O'Brien to run away.
It may be, as that gap is now at about 9/10 of a second. It's starting to grow a little bit, and over the past couple of laps, I do have to say that Michael O'Brien has been able to extend it a little bit. He was able to grow it by about 0.127 seconds on that last lap. Those are the kind of just minuscule gaps that he's going to want to build over the course of a run here to try to break away.
Gap back to 0, at least between Taylor and the 99, is down by about 7/10 since he managed to get the move done, as Luis Gonzalez Nunez, another mistake made at the top of Sheen, and now under fire from Hugo Gallas in the 84. And that's aggressive from Nunez. That's quite reactionary if we're being completely honest, but he'll fend off the challenge for now. Ricky Harding closing as well as they work themselves forward. But David Sirwa is on the hunt, and he's hunting fast.
Yeah, hunting very, very fast. As I've been keeping an eye on those gaps, he's been able to steadily take about 0.2 of a second out since he was able to get by Reagan. And that's the kind of incremental gap that he's going to want to pull in. Just keep doing that lap after lap after lap, and sooner rather than later, he'll be caught up to that leading group.
Here's a look what happened. Again, it's just so high commitment that corner. It's a blind crest, and he'll lose at least one position as a result of that. That was to Bobby Mikes on the edge of the top 20. Still under fire, though, as we focus back on this battle for what is 21st position. Mikes in front. Staples then in that 96 has managed to work himself up 9 positions so far. Been a solid recovery effort for him. And if you want to know what the pace of the leaders is in comparison to David Sirwa, well, that gap is now back up to about 3.4, 3.5, holding somewhat steady, all things considered. The gap back to Reagan, though, has opened up by 4 full seconds. If Sirwa had been able to get the move done earlier, he would have been in a much more comfortable position, as that's Paul Jenkins, I do believe, in the number 35. Another car having issues in through Sheen.
Yeah, the Elite West racing driver, I think, just spun that car a little bit around. And as we continue to see here, Otis and Taylor ring very, very close to one another. Now, what it's going to be helping Sirwa here to be able to close in is that battle. We watch that there. Yep, just a little bit too much commitment out into the outside grass there for Paul, and that spins him right around. They
don't make tracks like this anymore, that's for sure. Old school in nature, no room for error, as Scott Holmes will roll his car down onto pit road. 32 started. We're now down to just 26 left on the leading lap. Hotham retired, Wood retired, Young retired as well. Chris Lanini was in pit lane for about 24 seconds with some damage to his car. Closing is Matt Taylor as he tries to work his way maybe towards Ryan Otis. If you're Taylor, you won't be too frustrated. We talk about the fuel saving. We'll talk about it again. 26 odd laps was the estimated fuel window in a 54 lap race. You've got to save 1 lap per stint. Matt Taylor in the prime position to do that.
Yeah, he's going to get the benefit of 3 cars in front of him being able to get that draft. I'm taking a listen here to the onboard to see what it's like, as we've got a little bit of a battle back in the field here.
That was Tyler Graaf sliding on past Jim Herrick, who not able to get the up and under and to fight that one back. Looks like Luis Gonzalez Nunez also down onto pit road, as the battle for 15th will now see Tyler Graaf try and run away. Dustin Wardlow, Luke Daniels is... That was Scott Holmes, I do believe, who was just pulling out of the way. The Candyman grabs 13th position away from Daniels, who's had a tumultuous season. Some of these drivers have had as many incident points as Daniels has had laps logged. He wants to change that today. Looks on course at least for a solid 14th position as things stand. Let's focus, though, on Tyler Graaf, a man that is very busy behind the scenes, making all of the graphics for the Lionheart Racing Series. He's also your Moser Racing driver profile for today. 25 starts as of today, 6 top 10s, 1 top 5 coming into this. His best finish came earlier this season as Lionel Kalisto is having an issue. 3rd place for Tyler Graaf. Man with much commitment. There was Kalisto on the outside of the final turn.
Indeed, and there you can see spun around on the outside. There is that DMG United number 97 machine able to get itself back going, but not after certainly some problems there and some damage you can see to that left front wing.
Got problems, that's for sure. Let's take a look at how this came about. So pushing hard, and he pushes wide. Deja vu, but in the attempt of trying to save the car, he actually makes it worse than if he had let the momentum roll through the corner. Sometimes that's how it goes. Just right on board with Valiukas. You can see That moment where he tries to save the car, they are dropping one by one, and that 97 car, big damage. That is likely the day done in terms of any significant chance of making his way forward. A big puff of smoke in front of Adam Frazier. Who was that? George Ansaldo.
I believe that's George Ansaldo. Yep.
Man, well, we thought this was going to be a tricky track. I'm loving the trickiness. I'm sure George isn't, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need a track like this as Battle for Six continues to go on. A track which really does require the ultimate commitment, the ultimate sacrifice sometimes from the drivers.
Yes, it very much does, and you can see there specifically with that incident with Kalisto coming around like that, that was all precipitated by coming up from behind Valiokas, just applying that pressure, forcing him to look in the rear view mirror as they came out onto the straightaway. That's exactly what we talk about, is the sort of mental strain that you get put on as a driver and the mistakes you can make.
See the battle for the lead coming up on some lap traffic as O'Brien has opened that gap up. About 0.8 of a second back to Razmas as they work themselves into the final corner with 20 laps complete, about to be 21. The yellow and white car pulls to the side, lets one go. Will he let all of them go? That will be the crucial thing. Is it that opportunity? No, it won't be. All four get on through. O'Brien continues to toil away.
Yeah, good move there by Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, just letting everybody out on by David Sirod. Now the next car to try to catch up as we continue to focus in on that battle for P6. I've got to say here, Fowler looking very quick. The MadWorks Motorsports driver sending it down into Druids.
And that was assisted, we'll put it that way, from Chris Reagan. Gave him plenty of space, did not try and fight that one back as well. I think Fowler knew the urgency here. If he wants to try and close up to those in front to give himself an opportunity to finish inside the top five, had to get the move done then. It's Fowler up to 6th as we're working closer and closer to the pit stop window.
Yeah, we're going to get very close to it here as it comes down about 3-4 laps away from it. We're going to be able to see who's able to save just that little bit of extra fuel if anybody's running on that one-stop strategy. As you said at the top, Arjuna, it's going to be very difficult to get done, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the drivers going for it.
Taylor's been the one patiently at the back, just minding his P's and Q's, waiting for that opportunity to present itself. Razmas with the fastest lap this time by. It's a 13.971. It's the first lap time that we've seen to dip below the 114s. The gap for the lead comes down.
That gap for the lead comes down, and that will happen as the fuel burns off these cars. These cars are very sensitive to weight loads, and so as the fuel comes away, they're going to get lighter, they're going to get twitchier, they're going to be a little bit harder to control, but they are going to be easier to try to get a pass done on, as we have a couple of drivers looking like coming down pit lane. Adam Frazier, the latest to peel off.
Now, he was, I think, just outside of the top 10, but that's the indication that he knows he can't make it. Valenzuela also boxes this time by, so two-stop race guaranteed for them. As down the hill they go once more. It's O'Brien leading from Razmas, from Otis, from Taylor. Otis on his return to the series has looked nice and comfortable. You've got to think that they'll get more racy after the pit stop cycle is concluded.
Yeah, I have to think they would, Arjuna. I think right now they're all biding their time, maybe waiting to see if they can make it work, as Rasmus certainly can't make it work on a one-stop, so he is going to peel off down pit lane, the first of your leaders to do so.
Oh, and Ricky Harden has looped it around Sirod boxes as well. You expected him to force it to be a two-stop race. He was pushing to the very limit. 10 tenths there for the number 99 Guyon into the box, as well as many a car down on pit lane then, for what will be their first trip of the day. Razmas there for 7.4, Guyon there for 9, so Razmas may be trying to get an undercut working here.
I think that's a good strategy there for Rasmus to maybe try that, see if he can come out in some clean air, put down a fast lap. He's certainly got that clean air in front of him, so he is just going to be able to put his foot to the floor here and go and see if that not running around Ryan Otis, Matt Taylor, and the likes can help him out.
You can see it's opened up slightly now with one car out of line. Otis 9/10 back, not enjoying a major draft effect as, Georgian Zaldo's having a torrid day. Once more off into the kitty litter, this time at Paddock Hill Bend. Rodriguez comes down to the pit lane as well. Now do we see any of the leaders? O'Brien's in, Otis is in. As expected, Matt Taylor the only one able to stay out there. Now we watch to see which car in the three that will have pitted come the end of this lap will emerge in front. Has Razmas been able to make the tires fire off as he wanted?
Both drivers able to come to rest perfectly there in the box. They're not missing their stalls at all as we watch the 68 here coming around Rasmus, coming back around. Is he going to be able to beat them out? This is going to be close at the line. Rasmus already up to speed. Is he going to be able to jump Ryan Otis? That's the real question here. Around the outside goes Rasmus.
Now, really, it's about if Otis can jump in front of Razmas. Tires not up to temperature. You can see them wiggling on the entry into the braking zone. Down the hill a little bit earlier on the throttle for Razmas. Gives him the opportunity to sweep on by. Otis tucks back into line. Say goodbye to Michael O'Brien. That gap, by virtue of the battle, has grown to just over 2 full seconds.
And that is music to the ears of Michael O'Brien. That is exactly what he wanted to have happen. Now, the big question for him is the two drivers up in front of him, Matt Taylor and Chris Fowler, both of which who have not pitted. It's a question if they're able to make a one-stop work or if they have to come down pit lane. If they do have to come down pit lane, then O'Brien knows he's got some smooth sailing.
So Taylor can't make it either. They're all making this a one stop from here, 2 stops in totality for the race so far. Can Taylor go a little bit shorter on the fuel? Do remember, with O'Brien, Razmas, and Otis all somewhat equal in terms of the pit stop times, all about 7.1, 7.7 seconds amongst the three of them. There's not much difference that we're going to see. Taylor goes a little bit longer. It's 9 full seconds for him. Now that's Ricky Hardin in front of O'Brien, and Taylor tucks back into line at the very tail end of this train. So O'Brien has got a nice, comfortable advantage over those behind him. And I think now he's very much in control of his destiny. Can he make this his first Lionheart Retro Series career win?
Well, what he needs to focus on here is just corner exits, making sure he's not putting in the throttle too early, making sure not to shift down into a gear. Sometimes it can be tempting in this Lotus 79 to drop into the second or third gear coming through a few of these corners, and all that can lead to is just overspinning those rear tires, losing grip a little bit. So it's just about keeping focus here for Michael O'Brien and running the race that he wants to run.
You can see a little bit of lap traffic. Ricky Harding now sees his mirrors filled with Erasmus, Otis, and Taylor as we jump on board with that number 95 machine. Ricky Harding being caught in, let's say, a suboptimal spot. Now he'll get that opportunity to roll to the left-hand side of the track. Let one by. Will he let Otis by as well? Yes, he will, into the braking zone, but Otis has compromised. The gap, which was a couple of moments ago down to 1.7, grows back to 2.3.
Yes, it does, and that is just some of the traffic giveth and the traffic taketh away around here. As there we watch Otis flying down into the corner, and he is just going to have to hope that there's going to be some more traffic that scuppers Rasmus up ahead of him, that scuppers O'Brien, that gets in their way. That's what these drivers are going to be looking for now, as we are really going to get into the meat of the traffic here, and I would say about 5 laps time.
That's Paul Jenkins, I guess, in that number 35 machine that will be next up in line. Doesn't look as though it was too much effort for O'Brien to duck on past. Gap holding steady. Now, if anyone's going to have a shorter final stop, it will be Matt Taylor, but he finds himself 4.3 back from your race leader. He was 2 full seconds longer in the box than Michael O'Brien.
Well, and that's some of the pit strategy to talk about here, Arjuna, is that you can opt to sort of split up the fuel cycle a little bit between this and what you know is going to be your final shorter stop, or fill as full as possible, let the car run dry, and then come in for a very, very quick splash and dash at the end. Clearly, Taylor opting for the latter strategy there. I don't think it's going to be enough to jump him over O'Brien, but it may put him back into contention with Rasmus and or Ryan Otis.
It's the first trip for the Lionheart Retro Series to the Brands Hatch Raceway. What a race it's been so far. Still 4 cars in contention as they duck and dive their way through lap traffic. You're watching RaceSpottv and coverage of the GRAAFix eSports Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing. The run to the checkered flag coming up next.
With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
Welcome back to racespottv and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. We find ourselves in the southwest of England for the first time in series history. We find ourselves at Brands Hatch for round 6, the GRAAFix eSports Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing. Hello everyone and welcome back alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati. Delighted as always to be joined by DJ Clark. And DJ, we've got a race on our hands. It's a three-way fight. Matt Taylor has been dropped in the fight for the lead because of some traffic. It's O'Brien versus Rasmus versus the returning Ryan Otis.
Yes, it is Arjuna and Ryan Otis and Mike Rasmus, the closest on track right now, only about 0.6 of a second separating them, but we still have another pit stop here to go, or at least so we assume. So wait for some of the final heroics to be shown out in that last short stint.
If anyone's going to be able to make this without a pit stop from here, they have a fuel tank that's in even more dire need of inspection than the one that David Rodriguez had at Iowa last year. We'll put it that way. Now it's closed up slightly between O'Brien and Rasmus as the traffic is really coming thick and fast for them at this point, working lap 31. Taylor's now 5 seconds back. Sometimes it's the way it goes. You can try and work a strategy. It's not going to work in his favor, unfortunately, but he's clearly had the pace. He's clearly been one to watch. Of note, a driver that's had to take a tow back to pit lane. Bobby Mikes, I think, has had an issue, and I'm not sure exactly where that was. We'll see if we can grab a look at what happened to it right here. Seems as though it's going to be on the run in towards Paddock Hill. Ben sees the car out of pit lane, onto the gravel, and up and over he goes, tumbling end over end. That's a disappointing end for Bobby Mikes.
Yes, it is, Arjuna, and as you said, that was George Anzaldo coming out of pit lane, and I think Bobby just saw that there and then absolutely lost it, lost concentration, and that goes to show you how crucial it is that you have to be absolutely pixel perfect the entire time around this track, otherwise you will lose it.
It's a fantastic track. The Lotus 79's only actually raced here once in their history. Of course, this car introduced in 1978. Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson retired in the British Grand Prix, which was here. And of course, at that time, the British Grand Prix was flip-flopping back and forth between Silverstone and between Brands Hatch. So in 1979, when the Lotus 79s rolled out again for the British Grand Prix, it was at Silverstone. At least then, two cars finished inside of the top 10, although Mario Andretti retired again. Did not enjoy his visits to Great Britain in this car, it would seem, but it's a track that has seen plenty of excitement, plenty of entertainment. I guess technically as well, they did technically race here back in 1979, but it was for an unofficial points race when Gilles Villeneuve took the victory 1 week after the race at Long Beach. Another track which we'll go to in this 2022 campaign. 2.5 seconds, though, is the gap at the front. It's closed as well between David Sirois and Chris Fowler. Just 6/10 splits those two cars.
Yeah, Sirwa not looking like he's having the best middle run pace here. Remember, we said that Fowler looked like he lost out a little bit after Sirwa was able to get by him. Well, Fowler squabbling and getting his way back here. He is certainly closing in, and under a second there, he will be feeling the full benefit of the draft.
See a big difference in the pit stop times as well, about 2.3 seconds in the box, so maybe a bit more fuel being put into Sirwa. It will be a shorter final splash for him. The car behind, that number 20 Madworks Motorsports machine, going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more racy, with about 26 minutes to go in round 6 here. 32 took to the start, 26 are still rolling, of whom only 18 are on the lead lap. A battle between Chris Reagan and Chris Staples sees Staples down a spot. Reagan, we missed this, recovering because I think he sped in pit lane, spent 50 seconds in the box, serving a speeding penalty.
Yeah, and that certainly, the timing would work out on that. You can't really pick up an unsafe entry here at Brands Hatch. More than likely a pit lane speeding penalty, as you said. But one of the tricks in these cars, one of the things that makes them so difficult, is the fact that there is no pit lane speed limiter on it. You've got to do it all by your right foot. Very, very easy to speed. We saw Marius Valiokas, who currently runs in 7th, have that problem at Watkins Glen.
Battle for 4th now, actually see Sirwa close up to Matt Taylor. Now Taylor and Sirwa are very, very similar when it comes to how much fuel they put into the car, but will the Madworks Motorsports teammates gang up on David Sirwa as Fowler has a look down low to the inside, and we jump on board with that number 20 machine at the tail end of the train. Down the hill through Graham Hill Bend they go. You can push wide onto some AstroTurf. You've got to cut back in time though before the AstroTurf converts to grass. Off to the right is the Indy layout of Brands Hatch. To the left, of course, you work your way to the back half of the track, into the trees and this bridge where there was a monumental accident about a decade or so ago where unsightly crash in the junior formulas somehow saw a miraculous escape from the car for one of the drivers involved. Tyler Graf got past Luke Daniels for 12th position, but Daniels in the 40 sim racing car fights back. I mentioned earlier the tumultuous start to 2022 that Daniels has had to endure, and Chris Fowler's made a mistake, looped it again at the site of so many previous accidents. He's going to now slip into the clutches. Oh, guess who? The 23 of Valiokas, recovering from his own mistake.
Yes, he will, and Valiokas doing a great job to be able to recover from that. I've got to give him credit on that. He is only down 1 position from his initial starting spot of 6. We watch on board with Fowler. He was already pushing the limits there as they came up the corner, trying to get by David Sirwa, and it just looks like he was overdriving that car a little bit, taking way too much curb every which way.
I think a mistake from Sirwa allowed the opportunity, but you can't really go too wide. These are big cars, bigger than you expected. He pushed wide and onto the grass on the exit, and Chris Fowler, well, it's going to be frustration for him. 1.7 the gap now between Taylor and Sirwa. 9/10 the gap between Fowler and the RSR by buttkicker 23.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of damage to the front. Yeah, indeed, you can see on the right-hand side of that machine for Chris Fowler on the 20. So the left front wing there for Fowler. He's going to be fighting that a little bit. That's going to hurt him ever so slightly coming into these fast sectors when he needs that turn-in. Doesn't have any damage. That is the 23 of Marius Valiokas, the RSR by buttkicker machine. That's going to be very strong.
Can just about see it on the left front. No, so your right side of shot right now, there's a bit of damage to the front of that front wing. Now, will that be worthy of a mandatory repair by iRacing? You'd hope not, because if it is, Fowler's going to slip even further backwards. At the front, though, it's opened up now to the tune of 3 full seconds. Michael O'Brien has one hand on the victory with under 20 laps to go.
He still does have one more pit stop to make, at least we assume so, and depending on how he wants to call this strategy, we could see that fire off really any point between now and the end of the race. Remember, these drivers were able to make it 24, 25 laps on a tank of fuel, and on a 54-lap race, that means they're going to be just short, so you're going to have to time where you come in on your splash and dash, and I think that's going to be a big thing as, oh, we've got somebody off out in front.
Now, I think that was Staples in the 96 car that's looped it, and yeah, I'm seeing he is slow as through the traffic O'Brien works. Hasn't cost him too much time. Last time by, he was fastest with a 13.893, one of only 2 laps, I believe, so far that we've seen duck down below the 114s. This time, So 14.665 loses a tenth or two to Razmas and the chasing crew behind. No, they don't make them like this anymore. You look at the likes of Paul Ricard, the Circuit of the Americas. People call them parking lots. Somewhat derogatory term. At least that's how they're intended. Of course, they're much safer in some ways, but they don't have the same character. They don't have the same charm as an early pit stop sees the 23 car come down for what should be the final time today.
Little bit of an interesting strategy there from the 23. I think what he tried to do there is he recognized he was closing on Fowler, didn't want to spend time in the fight, and instead hoping to come back here in some clean air that he is not going to find. That is not how you want to exit out here if you are trying to jump a driver in front of you.
It is certainly not optimal. Frazier behind, Frazier in front, Wardlow behind, and Frazier loops it. Oh, quick hands from the 23. He gets out of dodge in the blink of an eye. That costs him, though, a couple of tenths of a second. That is frustration. That is definitely not what he would have wanted to see. We'll grab a look at what happened there in a couple of moments' time. Let's first, though, pick up what happened to Chris Staple, because I don't think it was all by himself. Now, who does he make the contact with? That's one of the Backfire Motorsports cars, wasn't it? As Michael O'Brien comes down to pit very, very early.
Yeah, there we go. Some of that alternate strategy starting to play out. I said, Arjuna, that we may see some drivers trying to do this. O'Brien clearly just trying to find a good gap, and it looks like if he can get out ahead of Fowler, even if he does it, Fowler's going to be far enough up the road that he is going to have some good, clean air to run in, so I don't hate this decision here from Michael O'Brien.
It's a teammate in front as well, so if push comes to shove, Fowler might get the memo that it's multi-45-20. Get Michael O'Brien on through. Do not cost him time. It is as simple as that. Razmas and Otis continue to roll around. Working lap 38 of 54 in today's race. Let's ride on board and take a look at the roller coaster of emotions that Valiukas would have gone through. There goes the spin from Frazier. Cuts down does Valiukas, and, well, like I said, got out of dodge and ran away as quickly as he could before any further harm came to his race, of course, recovering after his own incident, a self-inflicted incident down to turn one very early on. Otis looks like he's staying out, so is Razmas. There was a car coming down to pit lane that might have influenced that decision. They did not want to get mixed up in that one. That is for sure. I'm seeing as well a couple more cars have had issues. Tyler Groff spent about 5 seconds off the track. He's fallen even behind Adam Frazier in the 88.
Yes, he has. Drivers just continuing to struggle a little bit, and that's not entirely surprising. Yes, these are bias-ply tires. They should last the distance of the race, but they will get a little bit worn in here at this phase. It's going to be a little bit harder to drive them, and you've got to be a little bit more on your game. And remember what I talked about with the lightning fuel loads. These cars get looser, they get twitchier as the fuel loads get lighter, and that's the start of this is the start of that stage of this race.
See what happened to the 98 car. Your Moser Racing driver profile for understeer. Again, understeer. And I tell you what, there's rallycross configurations here at Brands Hatch, both in the real and virtual world. That's not the type of driving you expect to do when you break a Lotus 79 out here. Now, I did see this again. I'm seeing it quite frequently from some of these drivers out on track. If we jump on board with the 98, we're not going to go to the replay. We're going to watch live. We just see the damage to the left side of the front wing as Ryan Otis peels off to pit lane. Going to be a nice and tidy stop you'd have to expect for him, but there is that damage. You can see it slightly drawn upwards, that direction from where it normally is, and that's really not going to be helping the handling characteristics of that car. Ryan Otis into the box. Now, where does he emerge?
That's going to be the real question here. We're going to have to keep an eye out for him and Michael O'Brien. It looks like O'Brien already out on by, so no problems there for your former leader. He will be in what we assume will be the lead once pit stops have cycled back out and around. Looks like there for Ryan Otis. However, he has been able to come out in some clean air, so that'll certainly help him.
Chris Fowler boxes as well for the final time today as we come towards 14 laps to go. There is the race leader. Holds the fastest lap of the race. Now, does he box this time? Does he get the undercut covered off? Ryan Otis has got to fire up those tires and push for all he is worth. The gap between O'Brien and Otis is about 3.1 seconds. Now, as it stands, O'Brien Otis the longest of the stops. It's played out in that direction. 7/10 slower was O'Brien compared to Otis. Razmas continues to roll around, and maybe when you think about the fact that these cars go quicker the lighter they are. You're not entirely shocked to see that David Sirwa gets in front of Matt Taylor.
Yes, he does. So, all right, there we go. Sirwa able to get his way around up into what is P2 right now as Mike Rasmus sets the fastest lap of the race as they continue their way around. Ooh, very, very flirting with that outside gravel. There was Sirwa.
And again, you see the same thing when it comes to the number 8 machine of Matt Taylor, the left side of the front wing again. We'll point it out with a yellow pen tool. It's just pointed in a direction it's not meant to be pointing in. It's as simple as that. You get the understeer. You lose the feeling of the car. Oh, Matt Taylor, again, life flashing before your eyes. It's Chris Staples that's had another issue.
Oh, Chris Staples going off there, and Matt Taylor just barely able to avoid it. Very, very lucky there as we watch the replay. Oh, Staples just carrying a little bit too much speed through Surtees. He did the right thing, just held the brakes down there, spun the car around, and got back going once the track was clear. But a heart-and-mouth moment for Taylor. Rasmus is in.
So this is crucial. Now, where is he going to feed out in comparison, not to Michael O'Brien, but in comparison to this man, Ryan Otis, who's working his way into the final sector of the lap. In fact, he's working into the penultimate corner of the lap. Sirwa Taylor go on through. O'Brien has been caught up about half a second, between him and Rasmus is going to emerge in the race lead. A blinder of a pit stop sees Mike Rasmus jump to the front of the field. Michael O'Brien has controlled so much of this race. He's got it all to do with 13 to go.
Oh my goodness, Arjuna, the race is on for the lead. Mike Rasmus being able to take away what would have been the duck-breaking race here for Michael O'Brien. But the race is still on. As you said, about 13 laps to go. There's still plenty of time to let this one play out.
Now Rasmus, has he been controlling his momentum? Has he been doing 8/10, 9/10 of his maximum potential? Well, if there was ever a chance and a time to let loose, it's now, DJ.
Yes, it is. This is the time when you have got to go for broke. Hopefully you've got the fuel numbers figured out, that you're not going to have to do any fuel saving here. You are not going to be having to do any sort of tire saving. It is just absolutely push, 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 push.
The gap, 8/10 back to Ryan Otis. It's a further 2 and a bit. So it's a 2-horse fight as it stands right now. David Sirwa and Matt Taylor should not be factors in the race lead. It will hand back over to these two, work their way into Paddock Hill Bend once more. Down the hill, closing stages of the race. Look how much Michael O'Brien is pushing.
Yeah, you can tell that car absolutely dancing here at this point. O'Brien wants this win. He wants to break the duck. 2 P2s in a row will be good for the driver of the 45, but he wants to spray the champagne from the top step.
To Surtees, once more they go. Yep. Opens up very slightly, but not too much. Inside of drafting range still is the number 45. It's always difficult for someone to be racing at these sort of times for Michael O'Brien. Although having said that, it's about 3 in the afternoon for him on a Friday, so maybe taking a half day at work, as he tends maybe to do on occasion, and celebrating the start of a weekend with some racing activity. Usually when I commentate on people from that neck of the woods racing, it's about anywhere from 2 to 7 in the morning. It's a little bit easier to race in the afternoon than it is at the brink of dawn. You found out it's difficult to commentate at the brink of dawn as well, DJ, earlier this week.
Yes, it is. I had a 3 a.m. broadcast earlier this week, and let me tell you, there is no amount of coffee or energy bars in the world that can make you feel fully functional when the rest of the world around you is asleep. But, you know, Arjuna, you get through it, and you do what you can.
Whether it be coffee, whether it be energy drinks, you find the way. Next time by will be 10 to go. Time is running out. The gap has grown to 1 full second. As in towards the hairpin, that leads you onto the back half of the track. They come once more. O'Brien, I think, is slipping backwards. You'll notice he does not have the front wing damage that some of the other cars that we've seen have had today. The one thing he can't afford to do when he's sitting nice and tidy, second in the championship coming into this race, is throw it away pushing for the victory. You can win a championship with consistency. You like to win a championship by winning many races, but ultimately, one race does not taste as sweet as a championship.
No, it certainly does not, and drivers here know that, and that's why you see these leaders here at this race not getting into those silly incidents that we've seen some of the other drivers farther down in the field. That is the true difference between a great driver and a good driver. Is a great driver can minimize those mistakes and be able to bring it home in suboptimal conditions, be able to take a podium out of a 10th place car. That is what makes a champion.
That's what we saw from Adam Blocker last year. I think an average finish of inside of the podium, a streak of top fives that dated all the way back to September of 2020. That ended at the first race of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The mantle has been taken up by Phil Krause, who has finished inside of the top 2 in every single of the races that we've had so far in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Consistency takes you a long way. The gap between these two grows now to 1.2 seconds up the road, still waiting for Sirwa and for Taylor to come down and pit. Should be in, I think, within the next 3 or 4 laps. Luke Daniels, the most recent to make his way down to pit lane.
Yes, Luke Daniels coming down right now, waiting for the rest of the leaders to come down here at this point. We do anticipate everybody will be coming down here at some point before the end of the race. I don't think, based off my calculations, Arjuna, anybody's going to be able to make this on that mythical one-stopper.
No, and I'm a little disappointed. I keep hyping up these alternate strategies. We're getting plenty of alternate strategies, don't get me wrong. None of them as wacky and oddball as I'd potentially like to see.
Yeah, same here. You want to see those crazy off-cycle ones, and obviously when we get back to a little bit of oval racing, when we get to Indianapolis in a couple of rounds' time, that is going to be a big time to be able to try out some of those crazy pit stop cycles.
Now the question, I think, really with Indianapolis is, can we go green for as long as we did last year?
That's going to be the real question. I can tell you that I absolutely loved that green flag run. Very, very good. And then when we restarted with about 20 laps to go, I could tell you that I was hooting and hollering on the radio. I was able to make a couple of passes on the outside of turn 1, and it was a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it got a little bit more sloppy after that, but we went, 70, 80 laps? Three wide the norm, more than the exception. It was a fun race. It was fantastic. I'm still sad that was one of the few races last year that I did not commentate on in the Retro Series. Delighted to hopefully be doing the full season. Well, you never know. Thursday is usually quite quiet. I'm already slightly sad that I know I'm going to be missing some of the IndyCar races coming up this summer with some other commitments within the iracing sphere. As O'Brien locks up into Druids, the gap will open up even further. It's up to 1.5. Rasmus has got the afterburner set up to maximum. Maybe a lighter car as well. He's looking very, very comfortable.
Yeah, looking very comfortable and very controlled here, which is what you want to see when you close down on the final 10 laps of a race. You don't want a car that is going to be bouncing around on you. You don't want a car that you feel like you're driving it on the ragged edge. If you are in the lead of the race, you want that car to be planted. You want it to be predictable. That is the big thing that you need.
And again, I'll reiterate, it's a fixed setup competition. You deal with what you've got. Especially as the balance changes. I think that's an important factor as well. The balance changes, the way you drive the car changes. We've seen plenty of these drivers sliding these tires around. We thought about as David Sirwa comes out to pit, we thought about and we talked about the potential for maybe some tire stops throughout the course of this race, especially with this update that we had earlier this year to the bias ply tires. Yes, they're designed to go a full race distance. We didn't think that was maybe realistic, but it's been a good race so far. Don't think we've seen anyone take tires as Sirwa comes out of the pit lane behind Richie Hearn, who still owes us a pit stop. Should be down in a couple of moments' time. Alex Guyon finds himself on the lane as well. That's David Rodriguez that's had another issue. Frustrating race for him. Frustrating race for the entire RSR by buttkicker camp.
Yeah, this just hasn't seemed to be their day as a whole here, Arjuna. All of them seeming to really have some problems. Obviously, their third driver, Isaac Snyder, not here today, but just not seeming to get everything under them there for Valiokis or Rodriguez. And You know, I've been a part of races like that where you as a team just can't seem to find anything, and that looks like what's happening here. A little bit aggressive there over the curbs. That upsets the balance of the car ever so slightly as he comes through Druids and able to get it pointed back the right way at least.
Another driver that's got that telltale left side front wing damage, and he keeps it out of the walls more by luck than by skill, if we're being completely honest there, but he'll be at least somewhat happy with that. Matt Taylor boxes final car in this leading pack to pit other than Richie Hearn, as he'll work his way into the box and hope to maybe jump in front of David Sirah. The gap for the lead up to 2 seconds though. It's been a good day for Razmas, has been patient, has bided his time, and looks now with 6 to go to be the first repeat winner in 2022.
Your prediction at the beginning may not prove true here. We thought we were going to get 6 from 6.
Commentators curse, clearly. They'll blame me.
They always blame the commentators, it seems like.
Lewis McClade has a great line. He doesn't believe in commentators' curses. He believes in bad driving. I don't think that's fair, though, to Michael O'Brien, because he's had a great drive. Sometimes when you're the lead car, though, there's only so much you can do. You've got to be proactive. The cars behind you can be reactive to what you're doing. I think Michael O'Brien on course for what will be his third second-place finish of the season, his fourth in career history. I'm going to have to ask him the question, and I don't want to ask him. What does he need to do? I think Rodriguez has had another moment off the track. In front of him, Chris Reagan and Dustin Warlow side by side. Reagan, another car that's yet to box, of course, because he had a speeding penalty. Sees himself with a bit of struggles. He'll get on through. Luke Daniels wide through Paddock Hill Bend. And again, many more cars having issues. Richie Hearn down to pit road.
Yeah, Richie finally making that peel off here. It looks like the only other couple of drivers that we are waiting for are a little farther back in the field. Chris Reagan, one of those, as well as Ricky Harden. I think the only other 2 drivers that we need to see for a stop. Is this a problem here for the 10 that we're watching? Just misses that corner entirely.
And very similar to what we saw before with Gabe Wood. I think there's going to be a sympathy issue for... Oh, Richie Hearn! Richie Hearn is sped. There's only one explanation for why he's been in pit road for 20-plus seconds, and that was a loose car for Luke Daniels. That is some good car control to gather it up, to work his way through the gravel to get back onto track. Richie Hearn, well, how frustrated are you going to be right now?
It's one of the worst feelings in the world, Arjuna, when you're running a good race. You're just running what you need to do out there, and then you just pick up one of those silly pit lane speeding penalties like that you're focused on coming into the box, you're focused in on everything else, and you just have that momentary lapse in judgment. It is one of the most frustrating feelings as a driver.
Still be a top 10. Will not be too frustrated, I think, with that, as Luke Daniels gets in front of Chris Reagan, who makes his final pit stop as well. There's plenty of traffic. It's brought Otis and O'Brien close together with one another. That gap under 1 second. Will we see a fight for second?
I think we very well could. That gap coming down under a second right now, and we know the speed there out of Ryan Otis. If he recognizes it, he is going to push.
More lap traffic. I think that's Luke Daniels that they're working their way past. Just 11 cars left on the lead lap. It might be down even further when we get to the checkered flag. Opened up very slightly between O'Brien and Otis. O'Brien still tucked up behind Luke Daniels.
Yes, he is. That gap continuing to just kind of wheedle away there. He's finally able to get by him, thank goodness, but not before the damage has been done. That gap now down to about 9/10.
It's 2+ seconds up to Razmas as well. 3 to go at the line this time by. 3 laps for Otis to find and pounce on an opportunity. Reagan gets in front of Daniels, and oh, Reagan loses it. Or was that Daniels that lost it? My word, Luke Daniels, well, he survived, 51 laps? Unfortunately, found some issues in the closing stages.
Yes, he did, and that's going to free up this battle a little bit, but it has stabilized between O'Brien and Otis here to about a second at this point. And there you can see it, that car just drifting through the corner, that overcorrection like you talked about earlier, Arjuna, and a hard pancake into the outside barriers there of Clark Curve.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of mirror incidents of things going wrong for one car and then being repeated by someone else. It was Lionel Kalisto that had the very similar incident through Clark, the final corner earlier in this race. And, well, Luke Daniels, I think, can still hold his head up high. 15th as it stands, and I think he might still be able to hold on to that position when all things are said and done. Worst maybe he's looking at is losing a spot to his 40 sim racing teammate in Jim Herrick, but at the very least it looks like he'll get to the end of this race. 2 to go this time by. Otis still 1 full second back.
Well, and I've got to say, getting to the end of this race is an accomplishment in and of itself, Arjuna. We've seen so many drivers retiring, getting knocked out because of damage, because of those silly mistakes, that even if you're able to just have a mistake like that and still nurse the car home, put a feather in your cap for that, because it is certainly something to be proud of.
And 2 back-to-back road courses as well, right? For some of these drivers, maybe they're a bit more familiar and accustomed to racing on the ovals. Maybe that's where their pedigree lies. For Luke Daniels, he's not really being able to show it, that's for sure. Maybe an opportunity heading forward to move on. The momentum, of course, finished 14th last time out, so all in all, not terrible. We'll put it that way. 2 to go. O'Brien, 1.8 back from Rasmus, 1 second clear of Ryan Otis. I think the status quo will remain as the traffic plays a factor.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Adam Frazier, the next car that could present a little bit of a problem here. He's about a second up the road to Mike Rasmus right now. But Rasmus looks like he's losing a little bit of time. That gap coming down here a little bit more than I would have anticipated. It's now down to under a second.
It's all about where you catch them. It is under a second for the lead, but the white flag in hand for Barney, the flagman. 53 laps complete, 1 lap to go in the first race for the Lionheart Retro Series at Brands Hatch. It's been a blockbuster so far. Are we in for a grandstand finish? The gap for the lead down to 0.8 of a second.
Down to 0.8 here, and the gap for second place was down to 0.6. It looks like Otis overcooked it a little bit coming through Druids, and Sadbud checked him out. Not a whole lot of corners here left to go for these leaders, but the gap between all three stands at 1.8.
O'Brien's got to find a couple of tenths. He needs to be within a sniff of a move into the final couple of corners. As it stands right now is not going to be enough. Will Adam Frazier be the party pooper for Mike Rasmus? Will he be the one to help Michael O'Brien reach victory lane for the first time in his Lionheart Retro Series career? Half a lap to go. The gap is 0.6 of a second.
0.6 of a second as they come down through these final couple of corners. The sweepers here into Sterling, and there Frazier's going to be directly in front of them. Only one more corner to go, Arjuna.
It's too little, it's too late for Michael O'Brien. 7 career pole positions, still on the search for the first career victory. Mike Rasmus was patient. He becomes your first repeat winner in 2022 by winning the GRAAFix eSports Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing. The gap at the line, 0.3 of a second. Michael O'Brien, keep your head up high. The win will come. He's on a roll with 3 second place finishes this year, but the plaudits go to the championship leader who extends his gap at the front of the field.
A very, very fantastic race there for Mike Rasmus, able to get that jump in the pit stops and be able to keep himself ahead. I think we both weren't necessarily expecting that, but a good run from the 68 nonetheless. I'm going to be interested to talk to him and see how that pit strategy played out in his head, if he thought he was going to be able to get the jump when he did.
Doesn't have enough fuel apparently to do any celebrations, that's for sure. 32 started. Only 24 will finish. This track bit hard, even harder, surprisingly, than the land down under, which is littered with many things you do not want to fall afoul of. Richie Hearn will complete this race inside of the top 10, chased down by Adam Frazier. Many drivers hoping for some momentum rolling through to a second consecutive first-time race when in a couple of weeks' time we head to the Music City and the Nashville Super Speedway. What should be an exhilarating race in these Lotus 79s. What a day it was here southwest of London. The first time these Lotus 79s and the Lionheart Retro Series have visited the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And what a race it was. Let's grab a look at our simrace247.com race results. Mike Rasmus, the 68 car, only 0.3 clear of Michael O'Brien, the first repeat winner of 2022. Michael O'Brien, second place for him, his third of the season. What more does he need to do? He just needs some luck to go his way. That's sometimes the way the cookie crumbles. That's sometimes It's just how racing goes. Ryan Otis, the 2020 champion on his return to the series, completes the podium positions with a solid drive from the 95 machine, not making himself too involved in the championship fight. David Silrott in 4th with Matt Taylor completing the top 5. A good day for the Madworks Motorsports crew, with all 3 of their cars finishing inside of the top 6. Marius Valiukas on the bounce back after a mistake for him in the early stages, up to 7th with Alex Guyon 8th. Dustin Wardlow, the Candyman, in 9th position, 7 spots up from where he qualified. Richie Hurd, with a late race speeding penalty, will be slightly frustrated at how his race ended. Adam Fraser in 11th with a steady race to be the last car on the lead lap. Chris Reagan in 12th, the number 19 machine sped in the early stage of the race. He'll be frustrated with that one, but at least bounces back to get the maximum points that he could. Tyler Graaf in 13th. Cristobal Valenzuela then finishes this race in 14th, with Luke Daniels behind him, managing to get to the checkered flag relatively clean. You'll be delighted with that. Jim Herrick makes it a 40 sim racing duo across the line, with Rodrigo Munoz 17th, Chris Staples 18th, Hugo Gallas and Paul Jenkins complete the top 20. Ricky Hardin, well, not hard in the wall, he finishes 21st, only a second back from Paul Jenkins. David Rodriguez, with an end-of-line penalty at the start of this race, struggled. He finishes in 22nd. Then we get to some of the cars with more struggles. Callisto and Accord, 2 laps down. And then the graveyard. Chris Lanini, George Anzaldo, Bobby Mikes, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Scott Holmes, Brian Hotham, all retiring early in this race, while Gabe Wood, Adam Young, and Danny Roberts, well, I don't think Danny Roberts even got to the start of this race. Slightly frustrated, I'm sure, is the number 43 machine. And with a look at our race results, we run down into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to play. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. And in the HyperX post-race show, our first step is HyperX Victory Lane. For the first time in 2022, we have a repeat winner. His name is Mike Rasmus, and he is the championship leader. Mike, talk to us about the strategy of the race, being patient in the early stages, and taking the opportunity in the second cycle of pit stops.
Yeah, I'm mostly just relieved about that one. That was pretty difficult. Michael was really fast. Ryan, as always, is really fast. Matt Taylor, you know, I would expected to be following them to the finish and hoping to keep on track, but I kind of decided to change up the strategy a little bit. I pitted a little bit early and took a little extra fuel because I thought the lap times were kind of similar in that middle level of fuel, so I thought if I could keep up my lap times, maybe by the end I could catch Michael. And I gotta say thanks to Ryan for that pass that when he was coming out of the pits, I think, because I was I was pushing pretty hard off the track there, and I think he kind of gave way a little bit, so I really appreciate that for his clean racing.
I mean, what more did you expect from the returning 2020 champion? He didn't want to insert himself into the championship picture too much, that's for sure. Been a great start to the season for you, Mike. I mean, solid finishes and now 2 consecutive race victories, leading the points. What are your comfort levels so far? You were leading the championship heading into the back half of 2021. Surely you just got to roll this momentum forward from here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Everyone is really great on these road courses, and it's super hard to pass and super hard to stay ahead of them, and just gonna keep working at it.
Got to ask you about where we're going next, the Nashville Super Speedway. Now, I don't think you raced in the IndyCar race there, but what are you expecting from our first trip to the Music City with this Lotus 79?
I have no idea. I have really no idea at all, so we'll see what happens when we get into practices. Tires will be interesting. The car setup's going to be interesting. So I'm pretty excited. I like new tracks and checking out different places to race.
Well, it's your second win of the season. It's the third for GRAAFix LC Motorsports. Enjoy this one, Mike. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time from Nashville.
Thanks, bud.
Mike Rasmus victorious for the second time in 2022, and it's unfortunately more frustration in some ways for Michael O'Brien. And Michael, I'm going to have to ask you again, and I hate to do this. What do you need to do, my friend? You just need a little bit of luck to go your way.
I don't know, Arjun. I thought I might have had it this time, but it didn't quite get there. My outlaps on that third stint just weren't enough. It was too safe.
Was there any opportunity in the closing stages when the traffic was playing its part for you to have a look? It was only 3/10 at the line before those last 10 laps or so. Mike was keeping you at arm's distance for most of it.
Yeah, he started dropping off a lot in those last couple laps. I don't know if that was traffic or tyres or what, but yeah, I think we all ended up getting held up a bit in some traffic, so it played out. I was pushing real hard that last lap though.
What did you think about this first trip to Brands Hatch? I loved it. I loved that there was no room for error. Plenty of cars had issues, yes, but it's an old school track, very similar to what we saw at Phillip Island a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's super fun. Exhausting though, mentally. It's because every corner, the exit is really high commitment, and because the car's so loaded, you clip the grass and it just immediately turns you. It's a tricky track, but a lot of fun.
Showed you've got the pace with your 7th career pole position. The win is there. We'll see it this sometime in 2022. Congratulations on the run, Michael. We'll see you in a couple of weeks at the Music City.
Thanks, guys.
Michael O'Brien, another second-place finish for him. You could feel the disappointment emanating from there, but we now jump to your returning 2020 champion. Ryan Otis returns to the series, finishes on the podium again. Ryan, how much fun was it for you to be back in this Lotus 79?
Oh, it was a blast. God, I love this car so much. It's so much fun. You can just go out there and just do your best to drive the wheels off the thing, and you know it's sliding around everywhere, and you're just holding on for dear life. It's great fun. I had a blast.
Is this the start of more races for you this year, or is this going to be one-offs here and there?
I think it'll probably be one-offs. I hopped in because I think this is a fun track, and it was an off week for the IndyCar. You know, to tell you the truth, I just like this car so much. I may just come back to it next season, but I'm gonna at least try to finish out IndyCar. So I'll probably pop in here and there, and yeah, just have some fun.
I mean, your IndyCar campaign's not going too bad when all things are considered. It's by far the most competitive grid that the series has ever seen, and I think you're up there in the top 15 in points, so can understand why you want to focus on that. I've got to ask you, though, I mean, new track this week, new track in a couple of weeks, Nashville. Other new tracks this season include the Hungaroring. We're going to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Is there any track in particular, though, that you're looking at and you would, give the shove to the series admins to consider adding for 2023 to tempt you back?
I think Hungaroring would be super cool. I think that's fun. I haven't even checked the schedule. Is that on the schedule?
July 21st.
Oh my gosh. I gotta clear my calendar. So I think that would be a blast. I love all those sort of old school tracks. Even the track tonight was a lot of fun. It was tough. You couldn't really pass. You had to just sort of wait for a mistake. But still, it's so much fun just to drive these tracks because it's so high risk, and you feel like you just have to push, constantly. But there's so much, you dip a tire in the grass and it's just so over. So it's thrilling for sure.
I'm going to hold you to your word. July 21st, we'll see you at the Hungaroring. Great job today, Ryan. I'm looking forward to seeing you more in 2022.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Ryan Otis rounds out our post-race coverage, and, well, DJ, what a race that was. I mean, the first time we've come here to Brands Hatch, the first time of many, I do think, based on what we just saw.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Arjuna. Absolutely incredible racing up and down the field, and a track that really punishes drivers in these Lotus 79s. You've got to be on your game the entire way. It is a welcome addition to the calendar, in my opinion.
I asked our race winner about this one mainly because he's the championship leader. He's the one that's got the most to lose as we look forward in this 2022 campaign. Here's a look at that next level racing schedule before we wrap things up. It's a couple of weeks off, and it's going to be now spread out much more as we roll our way through to the end of this season. You do have some back-to-back races, most significantly at the end of September, the end of October as well. The trip to the Land of the Rising Sun sees us take on Twin Ring Motegi in the GP configuration and the Oval. At the end of October, of course, heading to the streets of Montreal and then to the Worldwide Technology Raceway. But from here, it does open itself up a little bit more. It means there's more pressure on some of these drivers to make sure they're prepared for what lies ahead. And up next, round 7, another new track for the Lionheart Retro Series. We go to the concrete surface at the Nashville Super Speedway. Concrete is always going to eat these tires up. It will be fascinating to see what it produces in terms of racing action in these Lotus 79s.
Yeah, it most certainly will, Arjuna, and I, for one, am very excited to get back to Nashville. I think you're going to see some tire strategy start to play in, a little bit like we saw it play in Homestead. A little bit similar in the way that they run, but a personal favorite circuit of mine, and I can't wait to get there.
It's not the Nashville Street Course, which I talked about my distaste of the Indianapolis Grand Prix layout, at least the one that we have here on iRacing, which is a 2008 configuration, never actually raced in IndyCar before. Yeah, the Nashville Street Circuit, I have similar sort of thoughts about that. But for now, that's all we've got time for. Before we say goodbye, though, we need to thank all those that make this possible, starting with Next Level Racing, title sponsors of the Lionheart Retro Series. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
Also sponsored by the Buttkicker. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can feel what it's actually like to drive a race car. Buttkicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of the tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before.
Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end eSports equipment and controls, precision-built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make this all possible. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, head to lionheartracingseries.com where you can find more information for the 3 competitions put on by the Lionheart sanctioning body. The next time the Retro Series is in action is June 2nd, our second consecutive new racetrack to the series. We head to the Music City. We head to the Nashville Super Speedway. 1/3 done with this 2022 campaign. Mike Razmas sits at the top of the pile. He was in this position last year, but tailed off as the season drew to a close. Will we see the same story, or will a new chapter be written in Mike Razmas's history with the Lionheart Racing Series? He is victorious once more here in the Retro Series. It's his 6th career victory in this Lotus 79. For now, though, we bid you farewell. On behalf of the entire team at racespottv, for my co-commentator and DJ Clark, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, signing off from Southwest England, where for the first time the Retro Series took to Brands Hatch. A great race, thrills and spills aplenty for all those watching. We thank you for joining us on RaceSpot and ESTV, and we celebrate our first repeat winner of 2022. Mike Razmas is on a mission. Can anyone beat him? Well, find out 2 weeks from now, June 2nd, at the Music City. For now, though, so long and goodbye.